Greetings, everybody, and welcome back. Today we're going to dive into the movie Bliss, currently streaming on Amazon Prime Video. It stars Owen Wilson and Salma Hayek. Before we do that, I have two things to point out. One, you might notice my audio sounds hopefully better. I got a brand new mic. We're messing around with levels, things like that. Hopefully it sounds good. Let me know if it does. And two, I am very excited to show you my new intro. I've been working with a company to develop a intro video for the channel, and today's video will be the first one that has it. So sit back, relax, and prepare for some complaints, because I have a lot of them with this movie. And this is Redeye Reviews. Bliss comes from the mind of director Mike Cahill, who is known for his bizarre sci-fi films such as Another Earth and I, Origins. Now, I will be talking about the plot of the movie, so if you don't want to get it spoiled, you can skip ahead to this time on the screen, or just come back after watching the movie yourself. The movie is about Greg Whittle, who works for a typical tech company and spends his days dreaming about fancy houses and beautiful women. This leads him to getting fired. He attempts to drown his sorrows in whiskey, and he meets Isabel. She tells Greg that the whole world is a simulation, and that the few real people in it have special powers. So they go about taking drugs and using their powers on anybody and anything they can find. He has a hard time discerning if the world is real or if she's right, so she makes them take a different, more powerful drug that kicks them out of the simulation. They then enter this world that is apparently the real world, and everybody in it lives without want or needs, and it's kind of a weird form of paradise. The simulation they were in is supposed to help you appreciate the real world more, because the simulation is grimy and dull and gray. But while they are in the real world, his daughter in the simulation, who according to Isabel is not real, is looking for Greg and knows he has turned homeless and is doing a bunch of drugs and stuff under a bridge. But back in the quote-unquote real world, everything starts to fall apart, and they decide that they need to go back into the simulation to then get more drugs, to then go back out of the simulation, but the correct way, and it's confusing. We'll get into that. It's very confusing. So they head back in, and while trying to find more drugs, Isabel is getting more and more aggressive with the environment and the people, and the cops get involved. They only find enough drugs for one of them to escape the simulation, so Greg decides to just stay and live with his real, not real simulation daughter, and we never really get a definitive answer as to which reality is the real one or not, which I guess is kind of the point of the movie, is like a thinker. Now, there's a lot to dissect in this movie, and most of it revolves around just pure confusion, to be honest. I'm going to do my best and talk about things on a level that, regardless of if you have seen the movie or not, hopefully it makes sense, because as I said, it's confusing. The first thing I noticed right off the bat is Owen Wilson's character, Greg Whittle. He's just so very flat, and poor Owen Wilson tries so hard to lean into that dullness and embody it, but he's given nothing to work with. All we know is he is divorced, he's a bad employee, possibly he has a slight drug problem, again, they're not very clear, and he gives into peer pressure, like, easier than anybody I've ever seen. Like, he meets Isabel. She immediately tells him the world isn't real, but if you take these drugs with me, it'll give you powers. And he goes, yeah, sure, that sounds right. And he just goes along with it. He leaves his wallet at the bar by accident, and she goes, leave it. You don't need it. Money isn't even real. And he's like, yeah, no, nothing to question there. Hey, even though this simulation isn't real, and I apparently am the scientist who created the whole world, I live under a bridge in a tent. Is that okay? Do you want to live with me? Sure. Yeah, why not? While you're at it, can you go and pawn my cell phone off for money? Even though just minutes ago you told me money doesn't matter, but somehow you need cash. Yeah, I don't have any problems with that, sure. Like, I just don't understand how accepting he is. The only time he even doubts her is when his daughter shows up, and he's like, maybe this strange homeless lady could possibly be wrong. But then Isabel returns, and she's like, yeah, don't talk to your daughter. She isn't real, remember? And he's like, yeah, you're right. Stupid imagination, playing tricks on me for 45 years. And it's hard to say if he normally acts like this or not, because again, we're given nothing to his character. So maybe this is normal for him. But if that is the case, it just baffles me how he's even stayed alive this long. Trusting strange women under bridges to give you drugs, it's not really a way to live life. I will say it is cool when they go back into the real world and it has consistencies with the other world. Like, as he walks down this aisle of tents, he catches a beer from this guy. And then as he walks down this waterfront, he catches some fruit from a guy. Or you see these statues here, and then later we see similar objects here. That crossover piece I really did enjoy. And the naming convention for things in the future could 100% be thought up by a junkie. Not sure if that's intentional, but I enjoyed it a lot. Like, The machine that creates the simulation is called the brain box. You want to guess what it looks like? Yeah, it's a big box of brains. Or this invention that shows your thoughts is called the thought visualizer. Like, it's just all stuff I could hear a junkie babbling about under a bridge, and I love that. Now, the reason this movie has received bad reviews is just because of how many things they leave unanswered, or barely flushed out at all. Like, in order to get out of the simulation, they need to inhale 10 of these blue crystals. So there is a real person inside the simulation that makes these crystals, and they can get the crystals from him. Why, again, he lives in like an abandoned apartment building, we don't know. But every time they interact with him, they get a sum of crystals that don't add up to 10. Like, they get 16, or I think at one point they get 11. I don't get it. You invented this simulation. You know it takes 10 crystals to get out. Why would this guy ever have a sum of crystals that aren't in a series of 10? And why don't you have a lot? Have like hundreds of these things. You would think this is a very important part of the simulation, but nah, who cares? And it bugged me so much that they just like never got enough of these crystals. Another issue I found was that Isabel insists that they have to go back into the brain box, into that simulation, to get the full amount of data collected for her study. But like, why? How much data do you need? Like, you guys were in there. This dude apparently lived his whole life in there. Do you have to live a full life? Do you have to die in there? Are they aging in the real world at the same rate, or is it faster in the simulation? We don't know. They don't go over any of that. Apparently we don't care. My own saving grace for the movie is thinking that it is just a crazy drug trip he's on, and that this real world is just like a drug high. And imagining him like running around in his underwear under a bridge, screaming about brain boxes and stuff and jacking into the Matrix. That imaginary movie that plays in my head is so much better than the movie you're watching. So in the end, it's just not fleshed out enough. I really do like the idea of the movie, and a simulated world that is used to appreciate the real world. That's awesome. That all works really well for me. I think it's a great idea that maybe other movies will play to that. I just wish the story and the characters in this movie were fleshed out at all, really. It feels like one incomplete thought after another, and because of that, when it ends, you're just left more confused than satisfied, and more questions than answers. And just because Greg Whittle accepts everything in his life without question, does not mean you should expect your audience to do the same. All in all, I'm going to give this movie a 5 out of 10. It's entertaining, but ultimately shallow. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know down in the comments. Please leave a comment, a like. Most importantly, subscribe if you haven't. I'm trying to build the channel. I want it to grow, and that's how we start, was just getting more subscribers. And if there's a movie you want me to talk about or you want me to do something with, let me know that as well. Or even a TV show, I'm down if it's not something like Doctor Who, because I don't have time to watch 10,000 episodes. Let me know. I'm happy to take any request. I think in a couple days we're going to talk about Willy's Wonderland, the new Nick Cage movie, because I have to, and it's amazing. So look forward to that video soon. But until then, this is Redeye Reviews. Stay happy, stay healthy.